Hello, it's Tessa, one of the news editors here at Manx Radio, back with another episode of Newscast. Today we're talking about pay, public sector pay to be precise. It's a subject you might be familiar with, particularly if you work in that sector or have strong opinions on how much money government employees are paid. We've spoken at length on Manx Radio about the current pay dispute between the unions, that's Unite and Prospect, and the Public Services Commission. Well, there's now a fourth pay deal on the table. But Unite the Union says it would still see some workers, particularly those who are providing essential services on the island, being left behind in terms of pay. Now, that deal, as it currently stands at the time of recording this episode, is one which would last for 2 years. It represents a 4% increase for the current financial year and 2.5% for the following 12 months. The last offer, a 3-year deal, was rejected over concerns that it might result in an increase below inflation. Debbie Halsall is the regional officer for Unite, and she told Manx Radio she wants an explanation for why a sliding scale can't be introduced instead.
And Debbie Halsall, Regional Officer of Unite the Union.
Lovely, thank you so much. So I think I'm right in saying that the fourth pay offer is now on the table. That's come from the Public Services Commission. Can you just explain for our listeners what's being offered this time?
What's been offered this time is a 2-year deal of 4% and the second year at 2.5% with add-on annual leave, etc. for the new terms for new starters.
So from Unite's perspective, what do you make of this offer?
It's a derisory offer from the one that was first tabled in a 3-year deal.
Where do you go from here? Obviously, if the offer has been sort of downgraded, what do you come back to the table with next?
So one of the things I would say is it's not a case of what I am saying, it's a case of what our membership is saying. The membership are very irate at the fact that they feel that because they would not accept a 3-year deal and said they would accept a 2-year deal, that they are now coming back with a less offer than what was first tabled. The 3-year deal was eventually 4%, 3%, and then 2%, and caveats attached to that was CPI fluctuating either 0%, 0.5% either way. There was a resounding no after I don't know how many ballots from both myself and our sister trade union Prospect, with a unanimous rejection. We balloted again in December. We didn't meet until the 2nd of January. They then said they would put an offer to us, which they put on the 3rd. The end of the business day on the 3rd of January, which is obviously the 4% and the 2.5%. Our members are angry at the fact it's taken so long. The fact we're coming to the fag end of a financial year and there has been no pay in their pockets, even though we start speaking and talking on pay negotiations in December 2023. We are now 2025. This needs to be resolved and they need to come back with a reason and rationale why they cannot apply the 4% and the 3%.
There will be many people who will listen to this who say, you know, you had an offer on the table, the membership rejected it, the PSC's come back with a revised offer. You know, I guess effectively some of the public are going to think you're not going to get exactly what you want. So how long does this continue for? Because as you mentioned there, it's already a long running saga and the people that you represent haven't had any pay increase in that time.
So if you look at the original pay claim, we went in for £1.50 per hour. We also give an alternative to £1.50 per hour to a sliding scale in percentage. That they've never came back is the reason and rationale why that is not being acceptable. And the bulk of the money went from the middle earner to the lower earner, not the ones on movie star wages who basically seem to cream an awful lot every single year. And what we are saying is, what our members are telling us is, it is not acceptable. We can only go by in recent events, in recent weeks, when we had all the bad weather. It's our members who are out there providing them essential services and non-critical services. But they're very good to do that, but they're not very good to be given the pay. So while people want to distribute, or while the offer comes as a 4% blanket approach, the cost envelope is more for that than what it was with the percentage that I done as a sliding scale and also the £1.50 per hour. So people need to remember, not only are they looking at getting some money in the pocket, they put the trust and confidence in their employer they'll do the right thing, and it doesn't seem to be coming forward.
Obviously, this offer has been made under the new PSC chair, Rob Collister. Have the unions met with him personally yet? Do you have any more confidence that this will be resolved under his leadership as opposed to his predecessor?
There is an expectation that we will formulate good industrial relations moving forward. And we have to give the opportunity to Rob Collister to basically make good on that. There is no banging of fists, there's no nothing. We basically want some pay put in our members' pockets. And he needs to look back and look at the pay claims that was done subsequently at the very beginning of 24 by this trade union and also our sister trade union, and explain why it can't be achieved.
So it's that explanation that you're looking for, as well as obviously a revised offer. From what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's you want the explanation as to how the PSC has come to this offer and why it can't offer what the unions have asked for.
We're asking for what we asked for in our pay claim, yes, and we want the reason and rationale why that's not being allowed, instead of being told it's the pay anomalies or the erosion of pay scales. But they need to basically evidence that, and also the need to come back with a better offer. If they came back with 4%, 3%, it's not that far ahead of the offer now, then we can put out a ballot, a neutral ballot. This is not headline grabs of the unions are being told. We've been told many final offers, and we're still sitting in a position of waiting for the PSC to come back with a joined up approach and a conversation, and we're hoping for that this week, because we do have a meeting planned on Thursday, and whether Peer will preside on the agenda, we're more than open to sit down and have a conversation.
And obviously, after those conversations are had this week, as you said, potentially you could go back to the membership and ballot on it. Is that the sort of next steps approach? You'll have this meeting this week, see sort of where the land lies, and then decide what to go back to your members to tell them effectively.
We will see if this is, again, another final offer. If it is, we will ballot. But we would also be looking at maybe arbitration.
And what would that entail for our listeners? If you were talking about arbitration, what would that look like?
Well, that would be conciliated by Manx Industrial Relations, and there'd be terms of reference drafted as to what an arbitrator would look at. And then we will see how many meetings we've had, what we've put as alternatives with offers. And we have done. We have put different alternatives at every time there's been an offer come through and it's been rejected. We asked for a 1-year deal. That was not accepted. We asked for a 2-year deal with caveats attached. That wasn't accepted. We have done all we can, and we're asking the PSC to basically reconsider their offer, and we will take whatever steps we need to take.
And just finally, Debbie, can I come back to a point that you raised earlier, which I think is something that sort of the public do jump on. You were talking about trying to make sure that the lower paid workers were the ones that were getting the benefits of this deal, and not those that were not those that were represented who effectively do earn the bigger salaries. How do you make that happen? Because obviously the PSC, as I understand it, represents more than half of government's workforce. There will be many of those people who are sitting on attractive salaries who probably don't need a pay rise. How do you sort of differentiate between those two groups of people?
It's not a case they don't deserve a pay rise. What I said was a sliding scale. So the sliding scale is the bulk of the money goes from the middle earner to the bottom. So the top still get it. They still get a percentage, or £1.50. If you go back, so the PSC, the Public Service Commission, is an amalgamation of the Civil Service Commission and the manual workers, which was Whitley Council. So when people say the PSC, it's not just civil servants, it is the manual workers, the ones who clear the roads, the one who clears the trees, the ones, the essential workers who are out there. You cannot tell me that the residents who live on the Isle of Man would not support those people who provide essential services. There has to be some capacity to look at which is fair and reasonable and equitable, that the middle and the lower worker is the ones who get the money in the pocket, and those on movie star wages will get a small percentage, but they're already on a good wage now. if you look, and they've give you figures on what 1% looks like in the cost envelope, and I mean, what does the cost envelope look like for 4% across the board?
So effectively, you're saying that if it was 4% across the board, it would cost government a lot more money than it would if it was on this sliding scale that you're talking about. Have I got that right?
Yeah, and that was part of the first submission that we submitted, OPA claim, a 9-page document last year.
And you're still in the position where there is no final resolution achieved yet.
If they want to give us the 4%, this year is nearly done. We're in January, the end of the financial year is March. They can easily apply the 4%, and we are more than willing and eager to sit down and have a conversation about the next 2 years for some security in regards to their budgets, etc., and making sure there's money in our members' pockets. Feeling that the 2-year offer deal that came through should have been 4% and 3%.
The PSC says it respectfully disagrees with the union's perspective that a 3-year deal would lead to an increase below inflation. It adds the new offer tabled reflects the Commission's decision to find a resolution as quickly as possible, particularly since staff have not received any pay increase for the current year. The PSC says accounting officers are increasingly finding it challenging to engage in effective financial planning, and a 3-year deal would have provided financial clarity. It adds a working group could be established to look at some of the broader and more complex issues in regard to terms, conditions and policies. Now, Manx Radio understands a further meeting is being held between the unions and the PSC on the 16th of January, and we will, of course, bring you more on the results of that exchange when we have them.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio Newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.